The Wisconsin Badgers football program gets the win inside Camp Randall Stadium on Saturday. It was far from a perfect game. Badgers fans, coaches clearly, desperately need it. That's what we're talking about at Talking Badgers. Welcome back to Talking Badgers Victory Edition. Victory Edition for the Wisconsin football program as it gets its first win in over 2 months. I'm your host, Kedrick Stumbris for BadgerNotes.com. You can find the show on the website formerly known as Twitter and, more importantly, YouTube, youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers to catch this live. If you are catching this live at 12:22 a.m. Central Time, 12:22 a.m. Camp Randall time, that's where you're watching it, youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers, or on the audio platform after the fact. Wisconsin wins 13-10 against Washington. Yes, you should win a football game when your defense only allows 10 points. Your defense should be given a little bit more leeway than only allowing 10 points. Your defense should be given a little bit more leeway than simply getting by with, if you allow 2 touchdowns, there's still room there. And that's what this game ultimately boils down to, is the defense is still the defense. And the defense is good, perhaps excellent. I think aided by the weather conditions to a certain extent. And if anybody has, thoughts to the contrary, hit the chat. We dropped the call-in link in the chat, the call-in link in the show description as well, if you care to join this evening. But Wisconsin wins 13-10 on top of a just standout defensive performance, a mixed special teams performance, one that started slow but definitely heated up down the stretch into 2 punters making tremendous plays on the field to help Wisconsin get the win, to continuously pin the Washington Huskies deep in their own territory, forcing them to go the length of the field, and Washington simply being unable to do so, as Wisconsin's defensive front causes problems all day for the Washington Huskies. And nobody caused more havoc outside of the dynamic duo that has become Mason Posa and Cooper Catalano, as you watch youtube.com/@TalkinBadgers, as I continue to speak, as I dig out my stats packet from today, so I make sure that I get to the things that I want to get to on this one here program. Wisconsin was continuously pushing Washington backwards. Wisconsin, 9 tackles for loss, 38 yards. The Wisconsin football defense pushed Washington backwards, 38 yards. That is more than the total number of yards passing the Wisconsin Badgers quarterbacks had this evening, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Wisconsin Badgers quarterbacks had oh, that's a good stat. Hang on, we're gonna circle back around to this. We're gonna circle back around to this little nugget. Okay, Wisconsin continuously pushing the opposing offense backwards, and Cooper Catalano, Mason Posa, there's a real case now, I think, that you want those guys starting in your 2 deep, regardless of the availability of Christian Allegro. I am not necessarily going to go that far, but I think you can make that case reasonably and say it. Look, those guys have earned the right to stay on the field every defensive snap, frankly. Cooper Catalano, 19. Let me repeat this. 19 tackles for true freshman Cooper Catalano, and comes to the program with a tackling prowess, a young man who seeks contact, who craves contact, who one senior graduate student, Ben Barton, speaking glowingly about Cooper Catalano. And Ben Barton has seen a lot of football. So he is not a guy whose compliments I personally take lightly. Ben Barton very much speaks his mind, speaks in depth, and speaks at length. And he attributed a lot of the defensive line's success and says a lot of that's guys like Cooper Catalano coming out and cleaning up and getting those tackles in worlds where the defensive line starts the play. Says it happens a whole heck of a lot. And Catalano's 19 total tackles are the most by a Wisconsin Badger since Mike Taylor recorded 22 against Ohio State in 2011. Cooper Catalano, true freshman, has the most tackles in a game for the Wisconsin Badgers in 14 years. He is, of course, the all-time leader at the Wisconsin high school prep level in career tackles by like a country mile. Cooper Catalano, 12 solo tackles, the most since TJ Edwards had 2 games of solo tackles in 3 weeks in 2018. Beside him, the dynamic duo that, Wisconsin Badgers fans are going to, I think, get like I don't want to go out on so much of a limb, but I think Wisconsin Badgers fans are probably hoping they get 3 really dynamic years out of Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa, and those guys become NFL bound because, wow, those guys have sideline to sideline speed, can make an impact, play their position incredibly well, and Mason Posa, beside Cooper Catalano, has 11 tackles of his own. The two of them combined for 30 tackles in this game. Mason Posa, 11 tackles, 2.5 sacks, and we're going to get to 2 of those because they were game-changing plays in both instances. Cooper Catalano is the only Wisconsin Badgers freshman since at least 1995 with 19 total tackles in a game. Second goes to TJ Edwards, who recorded 16 against Purdue in 2015. Folks talking to the chat, reminder, if you want to call into the show, we have the link in the show and the show notes. Tyler Streber, big win. Wasn't pretty, but it didn't need to be. Young talent was on full display. Just really hoping we can retain it in the offseason and build on what appears to be a decent foundation. You're not going to hear any disagreement with me on that. And frankly, I do not believe Cooper Catalano, and I had more of a chance to speak with him than I did Mason Posa after the game. I don't think Cooper Catalano is going anywhere as long as Luke Fickell is the head coach of the Wisconsin Badgers football program. Cooper Catalano, in-state guy, a guy who really, really, really speaks highly about his relationship with Coach Luke Fickell, believing in him, and what they say, what Luke Fickell has to say. Cooper Catalano going out of his way after the game to say the whole locker room has been behind Coach Fick since day one. He also mentioned that the message from Chris McIntosh after the game on Thursday, Chris McIntosh goes into the locker room to deliver the message that Luke Fickell will be returning in 2026. Was a good way to quell some of the outside noise, and Cooper Catalano saying Saturday's win is a nice way to kind of deliver on that and just have a great game like they did tonight. Evil Badger 72. Wisconsin should have started the younger players earlier this season. I think that is hard to tease out exactly how true that is or isn't, because if they start so early in the season, they certainly do not have. We don't see their development timeline, and I don't think there was none of us who were in spring ball, none of us who were in Platteville watching fall camp, none of us came out and saw like the initial two deep and were surprised by any of the lineup choices. I think there were certainly people who were seeing what Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa were doing and saying they got to find ways to get him on the field. And I mean, what you've seen over the last 2 weeks in particular, last 3 weeks in particular, makes you think that they really did need to make a bigger effort, even knowing what they thought of the guys in front of them. I think it's hard to tease out. Tyler Schreiber needs to keep investing in the D-line like we did this past offseason. That'll keep 8/44 clean to make plays and continue to shine like they already are. Yeah, absolutely. And a guy on the D-line tonight, Sebastian Cheeks, has a sack in his second straight game. Career high, 2 tackles for loss. The intentional grounding he drew to pin Washington back deep late in that game, I thought was just tremendously instrumental in how the tail end of that game ends up playing out at the very end. I mean, that game does not end the way that game ends with the final score, the way the final score found itself at the very end there. If you do not have Sebastian Cheeks causing some havoc and forcing Damon Williams into that intentional grounding call. I want to make sure that I get the drive chart exactly right here as I detail this. But I thought he plays incredibly well. Tyler Schreiber again. Did we get caught up in the world of instant gratification? Fick's first 2 recruiting classes are finally starting to flash. Rome wasn't built in a day. So there's push-pull to that, where you can say that over year recruitment, but if this one data point makes you change your mind about Luke Fickell, that itself is getting caught up in instant gratification, or perhaps it is, right? You are letting the most recent data point, if it's not, instant gratification, seeing what just happened right in front of you and believing that it universally, like, it alters the change of your course. It's at best recency bias, right? 14 plays, 63 yards. Field goal blocked. Gosh darn it. Why can I not find this play? I'm losing it over here. I know this is really, really, really great radio, everybody. Carter Smith sacked. Penalty false start. Wow, not going great for me. Okay, anyway. Ben Barton blocking that field goal as he blocks that a field goal that would have tied the game just after Wisconsin takes the lead. That is a play that obviously is going to be on, the highlight reel of sorts, the 5-star plays, the five plays you star on the chart after the game. Oh, okay, I found it. And it really does start with that Sebastian Cheeks forcing an intentional grounding call, because it all really starts piling together with just we're looking at a one, let's call it a 1, 2, 3, 4. This game really flips on a head in about a 5-drive sequence, right? And then Wisconsin manages to close it out after jump around. So the Mason Posa sack that I want to get to is the first one that I mentioned I wanted to get to. And I apologize that the show's been a little bit rambly to this point. Listen, I drove myself back to Milwaukee. I got back here. I hit record and we go. This is what this is. Just so you know. So gives me 90 minutes to think about what I want to talk about, but doesn't give me enough requisite time to organize the thoughts on a sheet in front of me and look at the drive chart to a certain extent. Okay. But Mason Posa, 2.5 sacks and a forced fumble. The latter half of the third quarter, Washington starts a drive at its own 8-yard line, manages to get a first down out to its own 21, but the drive stalls there because for the first time all season, for the first time in quite some time, as we talked about on the After Dark show earlier this week, Wisconsin had been without a forced fumble. They had lacked the whatever it is, requisite violence, the ability to go in and punch the peanut to get the ball out. Mason Posa gets Wisconsin's first forced fumble of the season, and Wisconsin's defense recovers its first fumble of the season. Mason Posa, strip sack, forced fumble, and the recovery. Bang, bang, bang. That sets up Wisconsin at the Washington 7-yard line. Carter Smith runs that in for 7 yards. And all of a sudden, the game is tied. On the ensuing drive, that drive, Washington starts at its 25 with the Sebastian Cheeks force of the intentional grounding penalty. That goes into them backed up, 2nd and 26, very short gain for 6 yards, back-to-back false starts on a night where the crowd made something of a difference. I really do believe. I think it did. Washington backed all the way up by the Wisconsin student section at that point in time. And Luke Fickell does go out of his way to say the crowd made a difference for them tonight. Luke Fickell says that in the post-game press conference. And I published a short before I walked into Camp Randall. The fan support. So I park pretty far away from Camp Randall. I park all the way down on Regent Street. I park all the way by the Kohl Center when I'm covering a game. And that gives me the opportunity to walk. As you know, I went into the short that I published on the channel before I walking into Camp Randall today. It gives me the opportunity to walk the entire length of Regent, walk all the way up Breeze before I get to the gate. And that gives me something of a sense of how many people are out and about for the game, for game day, and gives me something of a sense of what the fan support inside the building is going to be like. And real day. Not necessarily an all-time low, but something close to it. It's the first cold game of the year. Obviously, there are fans that are frustrated with the on-field product, and it didn't feel like the fans were going to give them much. And there was a lot of University of Washington Huskies purple inside Camp Randall Stadium today. Nevertheless, Back-to-back false starts on that drive after a touchdown by Carter Smith rushing ties the game. And a punt and a 12-yard Tyrell Henry return sets up Wisconsin at the Washington 36-yard line. And what Wisconsin's defense, with the help of the crowd, turns a tie game into a real opportunity for Wisconsin to go ahead, kick a field goal, gain 22 yards, and take the lead. After that, Washington gets the ball, goes into jump around, and you get the Ben Barton blocked field goal. You're off and running at that point. You're off and running at that point. And I asked Ben Barton after the game, what did you see on that field goal? Was it really just a matter of you got your hand up and sometimes good things happen? But this is seemingly something Ben Barton is just good at, is getting a big push as a zero tech on the field goal, getting a big push at the nose. He has Wisconsin's last 2 blocked field goals. Also, interesting note, the last 2 times Wisconsin has won a Big Ten conference game, Ben Barton has blocked a field goal. The through line between Wisconsin's win against the Washington Huskies and the last time Wisconsin won a Big Ten game on October 19th, 2024 at the Northwestern Wildcats, Ben Barton blocked a field goal in both of those games. Like one of these so hilariously stupid, should be completely inconsequential coincidences that I find them funny. Just for that's a very strange coincidence that this happens twice. But Ben Barton, I asked him, and he said this is something they actually talked about all week in special teams meetings. They talked about all week about there are ways that you can attack every single team. And they went and they watched their special teams unit, and with the guys in the middle, Ben Barton really thought they had a chance to push them back and make an impact on that play. It's something where he really thought, given the length that they have to go with the field goal, is that where he lines himself up, getting himself in the right spot directly over the middle, when the field goal attempt is that long, if he gets the right push, and in a lot of instances, Ben Barton's going to get the right push, evidence being the last 2 blocked field goals are both by Ben Barton. He's going to have his hand in a place where if it doesn't hit his hand, the ball is probably not going through the uprights because it's going to the left or the right of the hand, and no dice. So that sets you off and running. And then the special teams, not just Sean West, not just leading passer Sean West, who again we're going to get to, but Atticus Bertram's. When Wisconsin struggles offensively throughout the night, Atticus Bertram's is maybe, outside of Ben Barton, maybe your 4th quarter MVP. Maybe. Because Wisconsin, it advances the ball to the 47, 10, 16 yards. Wisconsin advances the ball 16 yards after that blocked field goal. But Atticus Bertram's pins, and yeah, he gets a friendly roll, but pins Washington back at his own 4-yard line when you know that offense is not moving the ball. That punt back to the 4 was about the moment where it started to feel real. And I said, okay, I think this just happens to be Wisconsin's night, because Washington was not moving the ball. They were getting the ball. Wisconsin was to roll exactly the way they needed it to roll. And Wisconsin held Washington to 134 passing yards. That is the lowest passing total Washington has had all season. All season. Wisconsin has forced opponents to under 134 passing yards, to 134 or fewer passing yards in back-to-back games against a ranked opponent for the first time since 2015, 2016 in the final week of the regular season, and then or the penultimate week of the regular season, and then the opener, or the opener against LSU in 2016. That does it. Washington advances the ball 20 yards. That's it. A 26-yard punt. Not the finest night for Washington's punter, but apparently Wisconsin's got a couple of punters, kickers who can do it for you. And Bertram's, again, gets the ball in his hands after Wisconsin only manages 5 yards, pins Washington down at its own 13-yard line, and then it is Mason Posa making the play of the game to seal the win. Another sack for him on 4th down. A 1-yard sack, 1-yard loss. Wisconsin goes out, wins it. They have to take time out before the kneel downs. I don't know. There's a joke in there somewhere about them not being structurally used to lining up in victory formation. There's a joke somewhere in there. Okay, I want to talk about the offense because that's where things went wrong. And yeah. But Tyler Strieber today hasn't moved the needle for me yet in terms of Fick. I just posed that question. The question being, did we get caught up in the world of instant gratification? I just posed that question because if we see more performances like this, I may have to reconsider where I stand. Yeah, I think it's good to start asking that question and start probing early, right? I think your analysis, like your internal analysis, your internal monologue, I think that's all right. I think that's a healthy, logical way of thinking through problems. I whether you're asking me whether you're a rational thinker or not, I don't know. Don't take that advice from me, because I'm sitting here on a podcast at 12:48 a.m. by my lonesome, rambling to you about Mason Posa and how Ben Barton is maybe on a night where you have a true freshman lead you as quarterback to a win, and a night where you have 2 true freshman linebackers who combined for 30 tackles. And I'm the one telling you, actually, I think Atticus Bertram's maybe the MVP of the 4th quarter. I don't know that I'm a reliable source of who is a rational thinker and who's not. I don't know. But if you're asking questions early about, okay, where maybe if I am wrong, where did I get it wrong about Luke Fickell? Hey, I think that's entirely healthy. I think that's a good thing to do. To take the opposite side of kind of the premise of your question, though, Tyler, he has had the opportunity to turn over this roster with a lot of transfer portal talent. They turned over the majority of this roster in the offseason. These are Luke Fickell's guys, and whether he is simply a better developer of talent than an identifier and recruiter of talent, I guess. I think that is still something of an indictment on his ability, whether it is a damning indictment, so to speak, whether it's an indictment that should be definitive in his ability to do this job at a high enough level. I think you could debate that, right? Is it not good enough to have a guy who can recruit and develop high school talent, but not be able to adequately supplement that in the portal? I don't even think that's necessarily the case of what we have seen with this team, particularly given the way that the defensive line has been revamped with some of those guys. But I think there's debate to be had on both sides there. Okay, the offense. Ugh. It's just pushing a rock up a hill. It is pushing a rock up a hill no matter who is under center. And I feel Tyler, I see your point in the chat, by the way, and I have something coming on the core of that. Because I think you're getting at something that, yeah, we're gonna have something. We're gonna have something more on that thought, but we got to move forward. the offense just pushing a rock up a hill, and I feel horrible for Danny O'Neill as a guy for coming in that spot and doing his darndest to stay involved in the team and playing just at a human level. You hate to see what happened to him tonight. Where Wisconsin was aided and where I thought it became clear early on this was something of a different Wisconsin game was on the ensuing drive as Danny O'Neill steps out. You know, what was that the second drive of the first half, I want to say, and I know for a fact it was the first play of that drive. He scrambles for 21 and about I don't know if it's a scramble so much as a scamper. But he rushes for 21. Yeah, it was Wisconsin's second drive of the game, and pulls up like 5-ish yards before he actually goes down with, I think, what was clearly the injury. You know, the targeting not call. One, I think, was the right call. Danny O'Neill led with his helmet. But two, that wasn't even close to what injured him, obviously. But on that drive, and I know they did not convert on this fourth down, but they go for it. Wisconsin does. They go for it on fourth down at the Washington 6 on 4th and 2. They have Carter Smith rush up the middle, and like, play call aside, it was that moment where they actually went for it, where I turned to my colleague Campbell Horn at Wisconsin Badgers on SI, and I said something to the effect of, like, oh, I think they might actually win tonight. Because there was some of this kind of just percolating of, wouldn't this just kind of be the game? In a very sports radio sense of when you have no reason to believe that this team would win this game. I think you can find X's and O's reasons why Wisconsin would win this game hypothetically, and I think those are reasonable. But just like all the smoke and everything swirling around, it just, you can make that case. So there was some of that swirling around out there. I know Nick Osen picked them twice to win this week on radio shows, and hey, hats off to him. But I have been, as much as anybody has, critical of Luke Fickell's in-game coaching decisions. There is an ongoing bit about my spreadsheet tracking his end of first half coaching decisions. There is an ongoing bit about me saying he doesn't ever use all of his timeouts in opportunities where using his timeouts would be to his advantage to win football games. I thought Luke Fickell, from an in-game coaching perspective, did a much better job coaching to win than coaching not to lose tonight. And that is not something we have seen from Luke Fickell since his first season in Madison. That is, I think, so abundantly clear through all of the tracking, the spreadsheet tracking, the like bit, but it is serious work. There's a reason I do it, because there is a marked difference of since 2024. Luke Fickell was coaching differently in game. I thought he coached a much better game, and it started with them going for it on that 4th and 2 deep in Washington territory. They were playing to win. And even though they didn't convert there, it was a signal going forward that stuff was going to work. And I thought even the decision to bring in Hunter Simmons at the end of the first half, I thought was, look, not a masterclass, because it's still Hunter Simmons. It's still Hunter Simmons, and he only has so much ability, but he delivered some beautiful passes on some of those crossing routes to get Wisconsin in field goal range. Now, they took themselves out of it. Gideon Atuka, part of that, and yeah, real up and down game for that guy. But The Hunter Simmons pass over the middle, short right, like Chris Brooks Jr. for 12. There's something there where they knew they only had so many plays to get the ball into field goal range, and knew with 52 seconds on the clock at the Washington 48 that Carter Smith, who had not yet completed a pass, they knew he was not going to be the guy to get you into field goal range. So they said, let's go somewhere else. And I asked Carter Smith about like what, if anything, was the conversation in the Hunter Simmons switch back to Carter Smith. And then he said, it wasn't really anything of a conversation. Right now, they're in the spot where they know anybody's number could be called at any point in time. And it's like a very basketball answer, but it's just where they are right now as an offense, and particularly as quarterback room. And whether that was a Fickell decision, obviously Fickell has to have some kind of say in that decision to trot Hunter Simmons out there at that point, or they have some kind of understanding. I thought that was for as bad as it was. Ultimately, they take a knee, and I thought at the moment it felt like they had made bad on a lot of the goodwill that they had built up during the other parts of the first half. But then they come out, and although they didn't end up scoring points on this drive, the first drive of the second half, you get 1 first down, and then from their own 35, run the fake punt, Sean West, prolific passing threat, Sean West. 24 yards on a catch and run to Jackson Aker. 24 yards, by the way. By the way, this is what I said earlier that we were going to come back to. This is what I said we were going to come back to, and we do come around to it. 24 yards passing by Sean West. 24 combined yards passing by Hunter Simmons, Danny O'Neal, and Carter Smith. 24 yards lost by the Wisconsin Badgers offense on plays they got tackled behind the line of scrimmage. Ugh. Goodness gracious. And that's just the, like, this offense is still this offense. They cannot pass the ball. They didn't even run the ball all that great. 157 yards on the ground. 3.8 yards per carry by Atuka. Okay. Like, this is still not an impeccable offense. You scored 13 points and had pretty dang good field position throughout the evening. And the one touchdown you as an offense managed to score was set up on a drive that you began from the 7-yard line. This offense is still this offense. And this is something of a game where everything really did have to break their way. That's why I mentioned the ball rolling as far as it did on Atticus Bertram's getting the ball down to the 4. That's why I mentioned the snowy conditions, which just seems like Washington never had it. They never really had much of an opportunity. And even in a game where Wisconsin missed an early go-ahead field goal, and even in a game where Wisconsin had a punt blocked deep in its own territory, but that was the only time the defense gave up a touchdown. It's a game in which Wisconsin got away with so much and yet had so many things go right. They blocked a Washington field goal attempt, converted for 24 yards on a fake punt, and even then didn't score points on that drive. Recovered your first and only forced fumble of the season. Lost again your starting quarterback on the second drive of the game. What a weird, wacky game. like almost like one of these games that's just too unbelievable for fiction. Just so many things happened in this game where it does not make any sense that Wisconsin won this football game. The three quarterbacks combined for 24 yards passing. You lost 24 yards on 6 tackles for loss by the Washington defense. Your second punter was your leading passer with 24 yards. Wisconsin's 48 yards passing, the fewest in a win since Wisconsin defeated Nebraska 59-24 on November 15th, 2014. This game doesn't fix everything. It doesn't. And I think most of my I will say most, not all, most of my grievances with the state of Wisconsin football under Luke Fickell still remain. They did play sloppy, undisciplined football for significant stretches. The unsportsmanlike conduct by Gideon Atuka, the blocked punt, the gross false starts, just inexcusable things that you cannot have happening when you know your roster is not up to snuff. Those things. They still lack real talent to pass the ball. And maybe Carter Smith becomes that eventually, but we'll see. Maybe it's too early to tell. And like I have said, backup quarterbacks are not an excuse for Wisconsin Badgers football. Wisconsin is a program that built its reputation not on winning because of quarterback play, but because of winning in spite of it. For the decade prior to Luke Fickell's arrival on campus, Wisconsin relied on multiple starts from backup quarterbacks in 5 of 10 seasons. I know that it's not the same as getting significant snaps from 4 quarterbacks and a backup punter. I'm willing to be intellectually honest about that. It doesn't fix everything. A lot of the problems remain, but I think the defense is legitimately good, and I think you have reason, if for nothing else, to be excited about Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa, to be happy for the guys up front, Sebastian Cheeks, Ben Barton, to be happy for Ricardo Hallman, who really looked like he needed to get his hands on a ball. Looked very happy to do that. And I thought basically ran the route for the receiver, and just a poorly thrown ball by a poor decision to throw the ball, I should say, by one Washington Huskies quarterback, Damon Williams Jr. It doesn't fix everything, but certainly makes Wisconsin Badgers fans that we saw in the concourse after the game looking a lot happier. And so that's good for them. Evil Badger 72 says, I'm surprised and happy that Fickell didn't wear that stupid vest. So big credit to WOZN Madison Zach Heilprin for asking the question in the postgame presser tonight. Luke Fickell did wear the vest. It was under the hoodie. The hoodie worn as part of the Wisconsin Badgers football coaching staff, all wearing matching hoodies from a particular Under Armour merch line to honor the veterans in advance of Veterans Day upcoming. But Luke Fickell was asked, wondering if it is a one-game thing where the team vest was absent because of that promo, or is it done? Is it done? Is the team vest done? And Luke Fickell said, well, might be now. I don't know. Might be now. I don't know. Before he went on to mention, it was underneath the military appreciation sweatshirts. Luke Fickell saying, as they've been battling through these last 6-7 weeks, the team vest was not one of those things that's probably been on my mind. And sometimes I think maybe we just need to change some things up a little bit. Went out of his way to say, the sweatshirt, his outerwear was very much more about the choice to wear the Veterans Appreciation merch more than it was about not wearing the team vest. I think he's wearing it. It's Luke. Like this is a Luke Fickell thing. He has his things. He has his, and I do not mean this pejoratively because I say this as a man who has many of his own. Luke Fickell has his bits, and he is incredible. If not committed to the bit. Not that I think this is the team vest is a joke. I understand the mantra. It's not for me, but I'm not a 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old college football player. So it's not supposed to be for me. Another thing Luke Fickell mentioned, that he said his dad is a Vietnam War veteran. And so going out of Wisconsin's way to honor the troops, respect the troops, something that was very important to Luke Fickell. And I thought that was touching from him. And thank you to Papa Fickell, so to speak. I shouldn't say that. That sounds too endearing. I shouldn't say that about anybody I cover. For his service. Dimitri, prolific commenter, 1515, says props to Hill for some amazing tackles as well. Yeah, Deani Hill, who certainly was a question mark if he was going to be available this week. But he tied a season high in tackles with 5, including 2 tackles for loss. That's a career high for Deani Hill, senior Deani Hill. You can't say enough about how the defense played, quite frankly. The defense gave you everything it had. Everything it had. Absolutely everything it had. And maybe and then some. That of what you could have expected from it in this spot. Make sure. We got a participation report. I want to see if anybody surprising did or did not play here. I was a little disappointed. I shouldn't say disappointed. I wanted to see Grover Bortolotti get a carry. Doesn't have a carry since the 5 he logged for 48 yards against Rutgers his freshman year. Real rough for that Wisconsin Badgers football running back depth chart. But no carries for one Grover Bortolotti today. That's too bad. Fearless special teamer though. Made some real plays, made some real impact plays on special teams. There's Fabry, Sean West, Jackson McGowan, Bryn Lane, Parker Peterson. Yeah. I do believe Kerry Kanako did play. So I think they still remain at 7 offensive line configurations used now through 9 games. Okay. I think I'm about burned out, folks. I can't believe I did 48 minutes on this. For the audio platform, we're going to have to chop a little bit off this. But absent anything else, hey, props to Carter Smith for coming in and doing what he did under difficult circumstances. He's from Fort Myers, Florida. He has never had to play football in snow before. And doing that, your first collegiate game in a spot where this certainly has not been the easiest week for anybody in that locker room. I thought held his head high and made something of an impact. This is the first time since 1988 that Wisconsin has had 4 quarterbacks attempt a pass. And that's not including some of the wide receiver pass stuff that we see, and that's not including Sean West. The first time since 4 have thrown a pass. 4 quarterbacks have thrown a pass. First time since 1988. Don't know what else you could have asked from Carter Smith, and I thought seeing some of the zone read stuff that they had installed from him was a really sound addition to the offense, regardless of how much Carter Smith was going to be able to throw the ball tonight. I think that's something you needed to get out of a Carter Smith if he is going to play in this offense, and that's something. The offense just looked a lot more like what you would expect from a Jeff Grimes offense, and it's moving in the right direction. It's being shaped in the right direction, even if it is not exactly up to snuff execution wise. But Smith said when I asked him, he was very, very glad that they installed some of the zone read stuff. It's a big part of who I am as a player, is being able to do stuff like that. So I was really excited to have it installed and to run it. And I mean, I felt like we ran it pretty well. So I love it, and I'm excited to keep doing it and venture off in the pass game a little bit too. That is the one thing he did come back to, is they got the win, but he was not satisfied. He was not satisfied with his performance. When he was asked about expectations, I don't know if this is exactly what he was answering the question to. The question was both about, what expectations did you have for the game, and did you meet them? And it was kind of like a singular no. And so I guess it's a little bit harder to tease out if that was, whether he had expectations or whether he met them. But the sense I got was it was very much something of he did not really feel like he met the moment that he hoped to. And so they're gonna go forward and try to get more out of the offense. Gonna be hard to get less out of the offense. But hats off to Luke Fickell. He made the most of what I can only assume was one of the most tremendously difficult week. Truly. And I thought coached a really good game, management-wise, made almost all the right decisions. Probably would have managed the end of the first half just a little bit differently, but it's neither here nor there. That's about all I got, folks. Gunnar Thomas, I know it sucks to worry about this stuff, but man, I hope they can keep Posa and Catalano when the portal opens. I don't think they're going anywhere as long as Luke Fickell is here. I don't. I really don't. I think that's very, very, very clear. Very clear. Like I said, Cooper Catalano says the whole locker room is behind Coach Fick since day one. Okay. This has been Talking Badgers. I cannot believe I've been at this for 53 minutes. It's 1:14 a.m. and there are double digits of you in the chat. You are my people. Cheers to you. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Truly more than you know. It's stuff like today where you get the opportunity to tell the stories of these young men, these coaches, the staffs. It's privilege, and I only get to do it because you all are on here this late listening to me, and it does mean a lot. It means a lot, and there's not ever a really tremendous place to say it, So I try to say it when it feels right, and it feels right tonight as I drink some hard cider. So have a good night. This has been Talking Badgers for BadgerNotes.com. I'm Kedrick Stumbris. You can find the show on the website formerly known as Twitter at Talking Badgers. YouTube.com/@TalkingBadgers to listen to us live, to get it going in the chat. So we talk to you all again very soon on Wisconsin.